This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're proudly coming to you through the ever-expanding X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring Walk on the Dark Side. What do you see? My shamanic teacher demanded from where he was crouched over my shaking body. He was serving as my guide through a shamanic initiation that, had I any idea what it entailed, I would not have undertaken. Too late now. In for a penny, in for a pound. Nothing but terrifying darkness, I responded through numb lips. All I could do was hope and pray he could see me through this, as I'd lost all sense of my physical form and was totally at his mercy. Embrace the darkness, he ordered. So much for his mercy. Apparently the man had none. What aspect of terrifying didn't he understand? I'm afraid I'll never find my way out, I whined. That is correct. You will not, he assured me. Crap! He was not only merciless, he was sadistic. Though I fought the inevitable with all my terror-induced might, the black vortex swallowed me whole. A galactic wind roared in my ears, and I felt the flesh being torn from my bones as I underwent a shamanic dismemberment. To my absolute horror, I found more of myself contained within that seemingly endless darkness than what was present in the so-called light of day. Lifetimes after lifetimes of shadowy existence bombarded me as my silent screams were drawn into the nothingness of the ages. You are to become a woman of power. To channel power, you must know and accept your shadow, lest it destroys you, I heard him advise from what seemed like another universe. Only through embracing darkness and light in equal measure can either be pure. It went on for days, as my teacher forced cup after cup of noxious brew down my throat. Paralyzed, I was unable to refuse his dubious offerings. I encountered a horrifyingly beautiful, bejeweled praying mantis that stood over me, towering several stories high. Who are you? I asked in awe, as it regarded me with wildly shifting, faceted eyes of unearthly colors. I am you, it responded in a booming, ethereal voice. Though I didn't understand how it could be so, I knew this to be true. From angels to demons and all places in between, I saw many human and not so human aspects of myself. I came to know all is truly one, separation and illusion. If we hide in shame, judge against any aspect of ourselves, and shove it into denial, we become unstable and capable of doing irreparable harm while believing our actions pure. True evil is simply separation from the whole. Anyone declaring another as evil is actually projecting their own denials outward. I was terrified of the dark power I found within, yet learned to fear the polarized light power more. I was shown how the imbalance was destroying our world. While we've been conditioned to fear the darkness, we're blinded by a luciferic light that threatens to abolish us and all we hold dear. In those days and nights of my initiation, I came to truly understand the words of Fool's Crow. I saw more than I understood, and I understood more than I can say. Finally, I found myself free-floating, weightless in the luminescent darkness, with no will or sense of self. Eventually, the roaring in my ears subsided, and I re-entered ordinary reality under a starlit sky. As my vision cleared, I was gazing into the campfire from a blanket where I lay on the ground. My teacher sat in the dirt on the other side of the fire. His dark, knowing eyes, reflecting the fire, glowed with an unearthly light. As he'd predicted, I did not return. I lost my identity and my humanness. I've never related to life the same. I now coexist between worlds, ever changed. Our guest this hour is John Luke Edwards. He's a doctor of both transpersonal and psychology and parapsychology, and has studied and apprenticed with many psychology and shamanic teachers. After this commercial break, I'll introduce John Luke, and together we'll explore shamanic awakenings and the eyes of the dark hunter. So don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. The Science of Magic is produced by Relmar McConnell Media Company, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Jean-Luc Edwards, a doctor of both transpersonal psychology and parapsychology, who has studied and apprenticed with many psychological and shamanic teachers. He works with individuals, men group, and in shamanic intervention and soul remembering through animistic and ancestral intervention. Jean-Luc also works with men's groups and produces The Forked Stick, a podcast show of the Circle of Great Mystery, Anti-Mystic and Shamanic Society. His websites, wolfinthedark.org, wovenpathtradition.com, and circleofgreatmystery.com. Jean-Luc, thank you for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Gwilda, it's an honor to be with you.
Thank you. Now, I understand you're a reverend. Would you mind pronouncing the name that you use for your... I looked at that and I went, I'm going to so destroy that.
It's a strange word. I do remember that when we got the registration from the Religious Affairs Office here in Canada, they pronounced it oog hair, which gave us great merriment. The actual word is ayar, and in all our ancient languages, the word conjures up a picture rather than a definitive meaning. And so an ayar is a bit like a shadow on a shepherd on a lonely mountain calling for his or her sheep, and very poetic. But that also means that we are licensed clergy through the Circle of Great Mystery here in Canada and in the States.
Okay, great. You have a lot of titles in your bio, and you notice I left those out as well. There was a good reason for this. What language is that?
This is the ancient language of our tradition, which is called the Sagh'ic, and that's a shortened version of the title of the tradition. It's a North Eurasian tradition. It's an animist tradition. We don't like to use the word shaman because we think that belongs to a different tradition altogether. But when we explain ourselves for people who look wide-eyed and really want to know, we use the term Celtic shamanism, which is not true. We're not truly Celtic, and we're definitely not truly shamans. We are of our own tradition. We are called Shan-wi, which are, again, is an image of someone finding paths for people's souls.
Got it. And I noticed it had a Celtic flavor to it, but it was not Gaelic. That I could have probably pulled off. Okay.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. That's what I say. So what are the Awakening Pathfinders? Who are they?
They're people who study. They train in this traditional form of, we'll use the word shamanism, because I think everybody can relate to that in some way. They train. It's a 3-year and a bit, an apprenticeship, where they spend a year looking at how you've described it, looking at those shadows within themselves. And then they spend yet another year looking how they can manage and use those shadows to help, support, guide other people to remember themselves. And in the 3rd year, they study further, understanding how those shadows exist externally in the great ancestral spirits, and they learn the skill and the craft of mobilizing those ancestral spirits.
How can a person tell if they're designed to be a pathfinder?
That's a great question. One I'm thinking I really don't want to answer.
You don't want to scare them off ahead of time, right?
Usually within that 1st year, to be honest, what they do is in that 1st year, they look at the shadows within, and they have to be really honest with themselves. And we who teach do the same and say, you're not ready. we have to be able to manage our own internal shadows. Otherwise, when we're working with other people, all we're doing is we're using them to corroborate or collude, or in fact to console our own shadows. So in that first year, normally people get a sense of this is what they were meant to be. The rest of the time, what we're saying is you're remembering this. Our tradition speaks of the very first person, the very first being that did that, and didn't quite succeed, and the Creator promises that others will come and complete his work. And so part of the training is trying to remember way back when that first kind of bloodthirsty incident happened, and there's a whole set of rituals and ceremonies to see if we remember that incident.
It seems like your practice is deeply, deeply steeped in ceremony. What is the purpose of ceremony?
Mm-hmm. In the Sikh, we believe that there is only one ceremony. The ceremony started when the great ocean called to the lightning, and the two melded and creation started. And that was the start of the ceremony, which, according to our stories, will end when the lightning leaves. And everything in between is rituals that keep that ceremony moving. So for us, ceremony is the momentum, the flowing of life. And in your introduction, you talked a little bit about evil, which I love, that idea of separation, not good and bad, but this separation. So when we're out of ceremony, we might be, inverted commas, in the grip of darkness, not the darkness, which we could say is the not good stuff. So ceremony is that motivation of life.
Okay, so it's like the original ceremony was the original spark of life, and the ceremony will end when the spark is gone. Is that correct?
In simple form, yes. It's a little bit more complicated. Being a traditional, a lineage tradition, we have our own cosmology, and everything moves in a circle, and so the ceremonies are maintaining that circular movement until in some way we'll find the weakest link in that circle, break it, we remember who we are, and we'll wake up in the real world, which is not where we are right now.
Exactly.
And that's we don't like to fall into that trade, but in a sense, humans are a bit lost, and all the other spirits from the real world came into his dream. And so when we watch, right now there's a storm, I'm watching the storm, and the storm is in some way trying to remind me that this isn't the real world and it's time to wake up. So ceremony does that. It brings us to a point where we get a glimpse of a memory that hopefully will wake us up. And it may wake us up to do a soul retrieval, fix a bad tooth, help you with a relationship. And each of those slowly moves us towards the awakening.
So it sounds like the awakening is when the circle is broken. Then does it become a spiral and evolve?
Well, our story says, and only the elders hold the last piece of the story because it's so dire, and also it's really difficult to understand because right at the end, it seems that the whole of the universe, how our ancestors understood the universe, turns upside down and starts again, heaven help us. But the idea is that it starts again, hopefully that humans return to their place as equal with creation. The whole point about being asleep is because we think we're in some sort of hierarchy. We think we're better than everything else. We think that we're caretakers of the earth. Good job we're doing about that. And a lot of our work is trying to help people to understand that actually everything is equal. We have no gods. We have no superior spirits. Everything we do is a collaboration. So when I go and make my cup of coffee, the ceremony requires me to be in collaboration and intimacy with the water and the coffee ground and the electricity and the kettle, animism is really difficult. You've got to talk to everything at the same time.
So it's like doing everything in a sacred way and communing with everything you touch.
True. For us, sacred is this idea that it comes from a root in our language. Sacred means of the heart. And a lot of our tradition talks about our hearts are closed. And when they're closed, they hide the fire of the great lightning that came. And the lightning is supposed to be revealed so that we can be one. And our hearts are closed. So sacred means the ability to, the opportunity to, the memory to open that heart and to try, and we're okay with try, we're not perfect, try and be one. I'm not sure it works terribly well when I put the kettle on and talk to the kettle. I don't feel very sacred when I'm having, yes I do. I drink my cup of coffee and I feel very sacred in the morning.
There you go. There you go. It's, I've seen this, as you're speaking, symbols are popping into my mind, even as like the icons of the Sacred Heart of Jesus or the Sacred Heart of Mary. It's like all these traditions have been trying to get this concept across to us, haven't they?
Absolutely, and you can find those same images about trying to break the heart open, in lots of the South American traditions, in the Hindu traditions. There's even a sect in Buddhist tradition where and these are all very gruesome. And of course, we've got used to this is all a metaphor. This is all about golden light, and it's not. A lot of our ancient rituals, which we know amongst ourselves, we just don't speak, really involved getting real hearts and chopping them open. And we do have ceremonies like that. We have a big ceremony once a year in the north of BC where people do, and they stand there with hearts in their hands, that not human hearts, if everybody's listening. And the initiation practice for our Pathfinders, they hold either a sheep's heart, it's usually a sheep's heart in their hand, and they make recompense to that heart as they break it open with their bare hands. We are pretty bloody at times.
Sounds very graphic.
And we make no apologies for that.
Well, sometimes we have to get down into the graphic, into the tactile to really access the spiritual, don't we?
And that's one of the things that we talk about in our tradition, that we don't do, we rarely do remote healing, or everything is done in group. It's physical. It's very intimate. And we're not afraid to say, and this is how our ancestors did it. We don't have, sorry if I'm going to offend everybody, but this is walk on the dark. We don't have blackcurrant juice at communion. If we did have such a ritual, we would use what was done in the very first time. We would use wine.
Interesting. So you're taking it back to the as close as you can to the original practice.
As written in the stories that we have a whole host of traditional stories, and anything that
we're going to have to take a break and take up with stories on the other side. John Luke and I will return to our discussion after this short break. We're coming to you through the land of leading-edge paranormal broadcasting, the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Don't miss our other fine shows and hosts on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. We will be back, so don't you go away.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge, breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Jean-Luc Edwards, a doctor of both transpersonal psychology and parapsychology, who studied and apprenticed with many psychology and shamanic teachers. Tell us a story, Jean-Luc. Tell us a story to guide us through these times.
They say in our old stories that the first man, who is called Fa, lived in harmony with the world. He saw everything in the world, whether it was a mountain or an animal or a bird or a river or a falling leaf. He saw all of those as himself and saw himself in all of those things. And the story says that this was the perfect time. This was the real time. This was the old time. But he's the only one. And there's a point in all our stories where the essence of being the only one seems to trigger a fear. In our tradition, we have some kind of nasty creatures, and one of them is called Naglach. And try saying that very quickly. Naglach is a three-headed demon, and he represents the three great fears: the fear of being alone, the fear of being different, and the fear of being abandoned. And the first man suffers these three fears through really no fault of his own, I suppose. But there's a point where his final mother, he has two great mothers that take care of him, and the final mother agrees to herself, because of course she is everything, that this can't go on. And he's called to stand in the ocean with her. She's a sow, a huge sky sow. And as the sun is setting, she gets him to look at his reflection in the water. And although the story doesn't quite explain it, when he looks at the reflection, it terrifies him. And, this is one of those great debates. Was he afraid of his truth? Was he afraid of who he was? Whatever. And he runs from that. He runs from himself. Because he looks around and he sees everything as being not him, as being different. And they say this is when the third fear of being different hits him. And he exhausts himself so much running around in the forest that he falls asleep. And in that sleep, he creates a dream where he's in control, and that although he's different, he will make himself in control of everything, which when we think about it, that's a modern psychological thing, that the things that we fear, we take under control, and that's the root for addiction and abuse and detachments, the idea that we subject our fears to our own assumed control. So this is happening in his dream, and the dream, our ancestors would say, was the world we live in. But, and there's a great but, the great sow isn't without compassion, and she swallows the reflection of the setting sun, and she gives birth to the moon. And the moon shines over the man, so wherever he is, when he sees the moon, he will know, A, that he's not alone, and B, that the moon is where the forest is, and he's not really left the forest. So unlike the Christian story where Adam and Eve are expelled from the Garden of Eden, and I really don't believe that. I think the angel with the flaming sword is saying, hey guys, it's this way. In our story, the great forest, which is one of the great female spirits, she sends all of herself into the man's dream to remind him, to call him back. And each time it goes wrong. And there's a beautiful story where the forest colludes and weaves all the trees together to make the most perfect woman. Her name is Bache, the first woman. She's green, but we won't worry about that. And she goes to rescue them, and she's guided by the moon to go and wake the man up. But as these things turn out in the old stories, she falls in love with him and lies down and falls asleep with him. And so there's this, oh, damn, what should we do now? And the forest constantly keeps sending, and eventually sends the first Shan-Wi, which is wrongly translated. I think everybody looks at the translation of the ancient language and they say, well, that's a wolf. But actually, if you look at the word, the way it's described, it means something born of fire and water that has large teeth, runs on four legs, and has got big ears. So it's probably better to say some great big dog, wild beast creature. That goes wrong because it terrifies the humans. They kill it. And that's when the story about the Creator promises that everything will eventually. Our spirits, we're totemic animists, which means although the spirits appear vastly different and have completely different characters and may assume to be doing completely diverse things, in totemic shamanism, animism, they're all moving to the same direction, which is to bring the humans home.
To enlightenment.
All is not lost.
And it sounds like your tradition, like the shamanic tradition, has a lot of fairly interesting initiations. Do you believe these initiations are designed to shatter the false identities we've embraced in order to become part of this artificial world?
all our ceremonies, and we have so many, and we're not allowed to write them down because we're an oral tradition. They confront the false shadow. They confront how we've turned. In your introduction, we talked about the light is blinding us and the darkness is blinding us, where light and dark together produce true sight. And so all the ceremonies, all the rituals, even the stories, at some point there is a piece in them, either in hearing the words or the sounds or the songs. We have our own songs as well, or taking part in a ceremony, and they're all, under the true nature of initiation, move us into something new. We leave something behind and we move into something new, which is the true nature of initiation, to leave something behind and to take something new. And we might say that that's sacrifice, which is that sacra word again, which is an opening of the heart.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's we say we take on something new, but isn't it really something ancient as well?
Yes, I don't think any of us find anything new. And I'm constantly telling my students, and I'm telling the people who come to me, I'm not here to teach you anything new. I'm not even to take you somewhere new. I'm just going to help you to remember what you've forgotten. And that might appear new to you, but sit with it, and eventually you'll go, I know that place. I've been there. I've seen that. I've heard that before.
You know, that's so interesting that you say that, because, again, in shamanism, I'm pretty sure in your practice, we have this dismemberment that tends to go on when we're going through an initiation. In other words, we're taken down to our constituent parts. But then there's this act of remembering, as in putting back together in a new form. That's what you're talking about, isn't it?
We do. I mean, that we don't call dismemberment. We have one of the male spirits who has three versions of himself, and his final version is called the Dorchar Cuchair, and that translates as the one who smashes things into pieces, and then they're reformed into what it was before it got put together in the first place wrong. At our initiation ceremony, after those 3 years of training and practice and out there doing stuff, the people are subjected to yet another quite violent spirit who is a raven, and he is embodied in a great ceremony. The person who becomes that is possessed by him. And this raven literally, physically attacks the people who are lying on the ground and dismembers them. And then the women come and sing to these people, hoping that the song will reunite them to be who they once were, and they do come back with the same as your initiation, not the same. So yes, there's a lot of breaking apart and reforming. We have two great spirits that do that.
Amazing. You know, every shamanic society I've studied has a reference to having originated in the stars. Is it the same with your tradition, and what can you tell us about ancestral stars?
I'm often, when someone's trying to trick me, they'll always say, "So, John Luke, do you believe in aliens?"
No, I'm not trying to trick you.
And I look at people and I go, "I really don't understand the question." And they'll look at me and I'll say, "The first story talks about the earth singing to the stars. And the stars, the earth is empty, and the stars come down and form all the ancestors." That's the first story where we go, well, we came from the stars. And a lot of our songs talk about Te Reanad, the day the stars fell. And then there's another bizarre story where the holy men and women, the seers, the whatever we're going to call them, receive a dream. And in the dream, they're told to look at the stars until they see the word is a complicated word, but it means goose wing. So I assume a V shape. And when this comes, they've all got together in the center of the world. And when the goose wing comes and they see it, we have these huge giants. They're called the Ganai. And the giants are described as tall men and, tall beings with lights in their hair. And they come to teach us and guide us, and they teach us really practical skills and how to live together. So the notion of originating somewhere that's not on Earth, because the Earth originated equally in our stories by the union of the great ocean, which I assume is space, and lightning, which I assume is the energetic force that holds everything together, creates the Earth, who then calls to the ancestors who live in the stars, and that continues. And we have a beautiful birthing ritual where the men light fires and the women sing songs to the stars to encourage the baby to be born. It's an unbelievable ceremony. Being a mere man, I'm not allowed to watch, but I'm out there lighting the fires, smoke passing the scars and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing. So is this an actual birthing ceremony when someone's giving birth?
Oh yes.
Oh, how fun! How fun!
People think you should see our funeral ceremony. Our funeral ceremony, which is a 3-day ceremony, is doing the reverse. It's just a birth and reverse, where we take the person who has died. Over 3 days, we talk to them. We're telling them how to get home, and then we take them to the fire, and of course, lighting fires and burning your dead's not legal in most of the world, but we would take them and as they enter the oven, we're singing to them, saying, the stars are waiting in there, the fire's waiting in there. And so we do this. We have a great relationship.
We're gonna have to stop and take a break. I'm so sorry. Cliffhanger here. Jean-Luc and I will be back shortly. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. We're brought to you by the leader in paranormal, spirituality, and alternative health programming, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is John Luke Edwards, a doctor of both transpersonal psychology and parapsychology, who studied and apprenticed with many psychology and shamanic teachers. Jean-Luc, we were talking about birthing into life and birthing into death, and I think that that's one thing that we've lost in our modern-day society is a very accurate and powerful way to steward our people in and steward our people out, and I think we're seeing a lot of detriment energetically as a result. Could you speak to this?
It's a piece that I take very seriously. We set up an entire group just to look at this and work with that. Our own registered ministers take a separate training to work with these transitions that are what we've been talking about, these ceremonies that maintain this cycle, this circle. And and we talked earlier about trying to break the weakest links so we'd wake up, but I think what we've done is we've ignored some of the links. And when we ignore them, we end up in a world where if we can't have our own way, we stamp our feet and make sure we can. And so we end up in a world where, and I mean this with great sympathy and blessings to everybody. I don't mean to offend people, but you get the person who cannot have children for whatever reason, their sexuality, their biology, whatever, and yet they will go to the extremes to have children, and they step out of the movement of nature. I worked with someone once who was desperate to have a child of her own and spent thousands of dollars trying to get herself pregnant. She wasn't married. She was spending lots of money on agencies. And I stopped, and they all failed. And I stopped one day and I said, maybe you're not supposed to do this. No, I've got to have a child. And I said, here's the address of an orphanage. Why don't you go, and there are children who desperately need a mother like you. No, it had to be her child. And on the reverse of that, we get people whose time is up. Why keep people from home? And yet we will give them antibiotics. We'll hook them up to pipes. We will prolong life where really life should have ended. Now, when we're caught up in that, on the other side, and this is where this is uncomfortable for people, it means that if we prolong life, the concept of birth stops. And if we look at the way people are dealing with birth at the moment, we have more impotence, we have less people who are able to give birth, we have more infertility. And then when we try to increase that, suddenly we'll get a war or we'll get an unknown disease, and we put the world out of balance. And so understanding that birth and death are a natural, sacred and holy part of the little bit in between which we call life, and to celebrate that. And I think that's because we've fallen out of a concept of a spirituality that, suggests that this is it. And,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So we've messed it up so badly that it's going to take a bit to get it back into balance. Well, Jonathan, before we get too far down the end of this episode, would you be so kind as to tell people where they can find your services and information on what you do?
The best thing to do is you can contact me direct, wolfindark, one word, wolfindark, @icloud.com. You can email me there, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. For me personally, you can go to wolfindark.org. So it's exactly the same as the email address, except it's .org. You can get my website, and it'll tell you all about me, and it'll put you totally off, and you'll never speak to me again. Or you can go to wovenpathtradition.com. And that's all about the tradition. And on there, I actually speak some of the stories. And it tells you about our rituals. It tells you about our community. And that tradition started a shamanic society. And that is circleofgreatmystery.com, where we get people of all sorts of traditions who come, and we run public ceremonies. We try and do some teaching. We collect money, and the society right now looks after 4 children. We are sponsoring a dog's home, I think, right now. We do an awful lot of pastoral work. And so if you go to any of those sites, they will link to each other as well.
Fantastic. How old is this tradition, and where did it begin?
It's a nomadic tradition, so where does it begin? You stick a pin in a map. We've linked it back. We did research, and as far as we can make out, probably in the mountains of Mongolia. And it's no coincidence that 2 or 3 of the elders, when they went and did their DNA testing, because it seemed the right good thing, suddenly discovered that we had Mongolian blood, and not in small quantities. So that's roughly where we think the resting place was. If we listen to the stories about the great journey that the ancestors talk about, it seems to be a path from somewhere up there down to either the Mediterranean or the Black Sea in a kind of oval loop. they talk about the Great Green Forest, and we think that was probably what is now Germany.
Okay.
They talk about the great deserts. Maybe that was the Gobi Desert, but it's there somewhere.
Amazing. So what is it called now? What do you call it?
The complete title is Sagh'ic Dhream, and I promise you it's not spelt that way. And it means the kindred of the wild dog beast, which is a bit of a mouthful anyway. So we just say Sagh'ic, and people nod knowingly because it sounds quite nice.
But the great dog beast is kind of left in the ethers.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about life's destiny? Do we all have one? And if so, where did we lose it? How do we find it again?
Remember I spoke about the stars descending to Earth, and each of us takes that journey. And that journey begins by the stars singing to the Earth. And we imagine that our spirit is that star singing. The song, we can imagine, is what we might call the soul. And that song descends. Now, in that song, why we're coming to Earth is incorporated. It's all the knowledge of everything we're supposed to do is in that. The Earth hears this song, and she forms the perfect vessel to hold and allow that song to do its destiny. So a baby is born, one assumes, perfect song, perfect body. But of course it's born into a world which is full of shadows, full of the three fears, full of agendas, full of the screw-ups. And very quickly that fragile song colludes with the external. So, a child is born, and straight away it's, I bought you a football helmet. Poor child's just been born, and it's got a football, or it's got a doll, or it's given a name, or you're going to grow up to be a fireman. Great job, we need more firemen. But the idea that the child, in order to be accepted, to not be alone, takes on those shadows, and bit by bit the destiny gets forgotten. I don't think it ever gets lost. I don't think it ever gets completely taken from us. I think we just forget it. And all the ceremonies and rituals, watching the leaves falling, watching the rain falling, sitting on the bus next to that crazy person, why are they sitting next to me, are all the means why we're trying to remember that destiny.
So it's, I'm a master drum builder in the Lakota way, and there's a little known tradition of attuning the drum to the person's birth chord. And people think that's a sound, but it's a frequency, but it's not necessarily a sound. It's not the way this drum sounds. It's the way the frequency put off by the drum. And the whole point, and this is a shamanic drum, this isn't just a common man's drum. This is designed to remember the person to their original tone or what they came in with. Is this pretty much the same thing we're talking?
It's almost exactly. I mean, we do make our own drums, but I was talking to someone else being interviewed, and I said we have this strange ritual where the person who, as best they can, so that will be the practitioner, that will be the Pathfinder or the elder, will call the song to them, and they will sing it, 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 and they'll go up to the person, and they will blow that song up the person's nose. And really,
delightful!
It really is that awful. And suddenly that person falls back, and they sit up, and 8 times out of 10, let's not be, they will have a song in their head, and suddenly they feel different. Now, do they go out and complete their destiny? One would love to say that, but they do change. And so this idea of tuning to a remembered destiny is prevalent in lots of traditions, not just ours, but that idea of tuning to the drum, tuning to the breath, tuning to the mountains, tuning to the wind is a remembering of, why did we come here?
After all the elements are a part of us, and they can whisper the remembrance back at us, can't they? Yeah, it's really been wonderful working with you, Jean-Luc, and I thank you and your group for the services that they're providing in the world.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy and a pleasure and a stimulation of passion.
Thank you. Our guest this hour has been Jean-Luc Edwards. His website is wolfinthedark.org. This has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. Don't forget to join us next episode of The Science of Magic. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you take a walk on the dark side.